Anyone is speaking, that they step up to the counter there and speak clearly and loudly, and remember that there's a 3-minute time limit, and we will advise you when there's 30 seconds left. Item number 1 is approval of the agenda. I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Item number 2 is approval of meeting minutes from February 27th, 2024.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Item number 3 is approval of conflict waiver from Allers and Cooney. And we have Shane Albrecht on the phone, and I would call on Shane to begin that process.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Right now you have a document that was included in your package. And basically this is a conflict waiver so that Allers and Cooney law firm, Jason Kaminsky, can advise you on the different financial ways to do some of the money as we're looking at different things with our claims and stuff that we've been talking about in closed session. So this is a conflict waiver so that he can work with you and the Board of Supervisors at the same time. Any other questions?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Passes 3-0.
And the Board of Supervisors did approve this last Tuesday.
Yes.
So we're good.
Yep, okay, very
Do we-
good, thank you.
Do we have a copy to sign today?
Yes, right here.
Okay.
Yep. Right, item number 4.
And Ron, you'll need to sign that.
Yes, we're all set up to sign it. Item number 4 on the agenda is approval of engagement agreement with mechanical expert HKA Global LLC, and I do have a document that I would like to enter into the record.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. All passes 3-0. Oops, I'm sorry.
All right. The document you have in front of you is an engagement letter from HKA Global LLC, and this is to retain the services of Larry Smith as a mechanical expert to look at some fire damper issues. The Board of Supervisors did approve this, and this would be a joint expert that would be used by both the authority and the supervisors. So what you have in front of you is an agreement, and you'll need to authorize, if you guys pass it, you will need to authorize your legal counsel to sign for you. Any questions?
No.
Any questions, Mr. Moore?
Let me just check one thing.
No, we're fine.
No questions.
Okay, I move that we accept it and that our legal counsel sign it.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Very good, passes 3-0. Item number 5 on the agenda is discussion and action on KTIV FOIA request, and again, I would call on Shane Albrecht to start that process.
Yeah, thanks. So KTIV had a FOIA request. We turned in a bill for $11,900 and some change. They only, our estimate was only $3,015. You guys approved 2 weeks ago, or maybe it's a month ago now, I'm not sure. But you guys approved in a previous meeting to give them an offer of, if they paid $4,456.25 for work completed so far, you would be okay to release everything but the text messages. The text messages, we estimated would take another 15 hours, and that the cost of that would be $1,875. KTIV came back with a counteroffer of $3,000 additional dollars, but in that $3,000, they also wanted text messages to be included in that $3,000 in their $3,000 offer. So that's kind of where we are. Jody, would you kind of explain what the decisions are here today, please?
Yes, and obviously we've talked about this in closed session, so in short, Shane's correctly set forth reminded us of the waiver that we've already made, and then the counteroffer from KTIV. Just to remind everyone on the background of this, obviously when we were responding to the request, by the time we got done with it and got the invoice, we didn't have a reason to know efforts would take that long to redact everything. The text messages were a little bit different. At the outset of starting the review of the text messages, it was clear right away that the text messages alone were going to take 15 hours. So because we had that notice, we stopped and we informed KTIV that it would be another 15 hours for us to review the text messages and produce them. And that's based upon just the technology. Our owner's rep is not able to, they would be reviewing all of the personal text messages from Todd Wick and Shane Albright. So it would take another 15 hours. And so of course we'd be happy to produce those from KTIV if they're agreeable to paying those additional costs per that new estimate. And so their response was that, again, they would just pay another $3,000 on top of the estimate they already paid, but they wanted all the documents that we've already gathered, plus they want us to do the extra 15 hours worth of text message review and not be charged for that additional review. So from my perspective, a public entity, this would be new ground for you all as an authority to decide to basically perform this text message review for free without charging the FOIA request. So you have a couple of decisions. If you agreed to KTIV's offer, I just want to be clear that would mean they'd be paying $3,000 and not the $4,456 that we waived. Plus, they'd be getting approximately another $1,875 worth of review time for free. In essence, we wouldn't charge them for it. And you guys are aware of my prior recommendations that I made in closed session. So your options here, or you could accept the counter offer, you can deny it altogether, or you can deny it and propose a counter offer. And then obviously that decision is yours to make.
Comments?
Well, a couple of thoughts. I think, I want to cooperate on this, but I also want to do the right thing. And at one point in time, I thought KTIV's legal counsel was saying it was a $15,000 bill, and they made their offer based on that, when it was really just under $12,000, and they already paid $3,000, so we were splitting the $9,000 difference, just in round numbers.
Yes.
So somewhere we're $3,000 off to begin with. And then I thought part of the questions raised by KTIV is, well, I think the text messages seem to be like it's separate and apart from what we're talking about, I think, on the work that's been done, because we've already estimated 15 hours. Now, I'm not sure I knew about the 1,875 estimate for those costs,
That's the 15 hours.
but that's for the 15 hours.
Text messages, 1875 is the amount to provide the text messages.
So it seems to me it would be reasonable to think that that's separate and apart from the $12,000 that we're talking about. So, really, if their $3,000 offer still stands, then we're about $1,456 apart. And I'm not sure what to do with that,
Well,
to be honest with you, but.
I feel like this is where I'm at on it. I feel like we've already diminished the amount that it cost us to provide those emails, or will provide those emails. Personally, I think we continue down the road that we've been on, that KTIV owes us another $4,456.25 for the emails, and if they want the text messages, that would be an additional $1,875. So if my math is correct, if they want the documents that we have prepared for them right now as far as emails are concerned, and they want the text messages. If my math is correct, that's $6,331.25 that we would need to have to provide the information that they've asked for.
I've been thinking about this a lot since Friday. You know, when the original story broke that the estimate was much higher than 3,000, I think it was 10 minutes before I had the first email in my inbox from a concerned citizen about this whole process. And that night and in the days that followed, I ended up talking to a lot of people about this issue, about what was reported and what other information there was, a lot of it that we cleared up at that next meeting. When this kind of alternative, or this offer for KTAB came on Thursday, I went back and I started to contact some of those people that had reached out to me. Well, not some of them, anyone that had reached out to me, I had contacted them and told them about this new offer. And in all my travels in this past week, which I was out in the public quite a bit this weekend, I was at some meetings last night, I would ask people what they would like me to do, because I represent them. So it's really not a matter of what my opinion is so much as what the taxpayers would want me to do. I talked with registered Republicans, I talked with registered Democrats, I talked with registered independents, I talked with people who voted for the jail, I talked to people who didn't vote for the jail. I talked to people who have been very harsh critics of this body and of the project altogether. And there were a few that initially said, yeah, you should split the difference with it as a sign of good faith. But on the second go around, everyone I talked to, other than one, said that what we did was a good gesture and was the right thing, but that was enough. And the only one that wasn't said that maybe we should split it in half. And he's actually sitting here today. And so, for even some of these really harsh critics who have been in my emails and my phone on this project, for them to tell me that, no, there's a process laid out by the law, you guys have followed it, you've been reasonable, you gave them some help when we didn't have to. Again, I work for the people, and when it was that overwhelming and from all sides and all opinions on this project, I guess that's kind of where I'm at. And quite a few of them said that, like you said, Dan, that the text messages are a separate issue. You know, we were hopeful that we could use technology to make that a quick process, and we couldn't. And when we figured out that we couldn't, we reached out to KTIV and they said, yeah, full stop. We don't want to spend that kind of money. And so for that to kind of enter the equation again, I feel that's maybe improper as part of this deal. So speaking for the people in Woodbury County who I've talked to, I'm going to say that we need to stick with our original offer of splitting the initial overrun. And if they would like text messages or anything else, we'll be more than happy to accommodate any future FOIA requests, just like we have in the past.
Any other comments?
I'd like to see if we have any public input.
That's fair.
Fine with me.
Well, I guess I can speak. I'm Keith Flibbin. I'm the Director of Operations, Station Operations at KTAV. So, first time I've been here to the meeting. So, just understand our main concern that we've had through this entire process is we originally did the deposit or the estimate, whatever we want to call it, of $3 grand. It's fine. What our concern has been number one, I think the 15,000 that you were talking about, Dan, I think that comes from when we received the invoices at 12. We didn't know if that 3 was part of that or not, so that's probably where that came from, I guess. But our concern has been from the beginning of the estimate was $3 grand. That's fine. You know, and we paid that. It's not a problem. And then all of a sudden, to get a bill that's 4 times that, in my understanding, no no heads up, hey, we've doubled it, we've tripled it, hey, would you want us to keep going? Like you mentioned the text message, you said they contacted somebody and they said stop. That never happened. I've never been involved with a FOIA ever. I've been doing this for 30 years where that has ever happened. So that is the biggest issue that we have with this is it was $3,000. I understand. And the text messages were part of the original request. So that's why in the offer of we're just trying to get what we originally asked for. So just wanted to kind of make that clear and try to maybe explain some of the confusion that may have happened. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions I can if you have any.
Do you think that so you're outlining a misunderstanding of some sorts, maybe a miscommunication,
Sure.
and I think, at least from my standpoint, I was trying to meet you halfway on it, split the difference.
Right.
And I was hoping we could do that.
Right.
I still, I mean, the text messaging, the reason why I said separate and apart is because we know now it's gonna be 15 hours,
Sure.
$1,575.
I was asking, what was the
So
price
you know
of that
that.
again? Yeah.
So you know that amount. But, so I thought splitting the difference was kind of a fair resolution to something that might have been miscommunication, if you want to say it's on both sides, or
Sure.
misunderstanding on both sides.
Right.
And then we just split that difference with you.
So, I mean, I can't make an agreement here, obviously, but, if that offer may include the text messages as well in splitting the cost, maybe that's something that I could, to take back to them. I don't know if that's an option, but.
An additional split of the 1875.
So, yeah, I don't know if that's an option, but that could be something that I could take back to my bosses and see if they would agree to. So, we're just, our whole goal in this process is to get what we originally asked for in the original FOIA, the way I understand it.
I'm sorry that there was confusion on the 12 or 15,000,
Right.
but, so just so you're aware, I had actually answered that question with your reporters multiple times.
Okay.
It was 12,000 less than 3,000, not in
Okay.
addition to, and so I was kind of frustrated that was still coming up because I had answered it many
Sure.
times. But I think if you look at our FOIAs, Jody has always put on there that if the estimate goes over, the party is responsible, and if the estimate is under, we will refund back whatever you overpaid.
Okay.
And so that was part of this, and I would liken this, I know in your guys' story, you compared it to a car mechanic giving you an estimate on a repair, and it was, you go to pick it up and it's more.
Right.
And the actual, if you wanna do an analogy, would be like you hired a contractor to remodel your bathroom. He said $3,000, I'll get your bathroom done. Well, he opens it up, and now the wiring isn't up to code, the water lines are rotten, the underlayment's rotten, and now it's a $12,000 bathroom. You don't have a shady contractor, you just have a really poor bathroom that had a lot of hidden problems. And that's what we have with this FOIA request. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And once we started, you guys had agreed, and like what we sent out with the language, that if it exceeded the estimate, that was gonna be on you guys. And I mean, we're looking at 20 to 30,000 documents. I mean, this is absolutely huge. And I've had other members of the press here locally contact me that in all their decades of experience have never seen a FOIA request anywhere near this size.
And it was pared down from the original, is my understanding,
Yes,
correct?
yeah.
On your construction analysis, I mean, I'm not a construction person by any means, but I have a little bit of knowledge of this because we're doing some restructuring at the station. You are correct. If our construction company opened up the walls and saw some items, they would immediately stop. They would come tell me, we found this. Our original contracted amount was this. This is what we originally agreed on. It's now going to be more. That conversation would have taken place. That conversation never took place. We did an original $3,000 estimate, which that's fine. To come back and it's 4 times as much, I don't know any contractor, I don't know any mechanic, however the way you want to compare it to, that would be acceptable with anybody, that, without a conversation taking place, of coming to the customer and going, this is so much bigger than we originally estimated, this is where we're at, we need to have a conversation, do we need to continue, do we not want to continue, you may want to pony up some more money, and yet, none of that took place. It was, here's the original 3, and then all of a sudden there's an invoice that we get in an email that says 12.
I think,
So that's the whole conversation.
I think we need to stop and think about a couple of things based on what you just talked about, and that is, number one, if you've got an auto mechanic, he does estimating on mechanical jobs day in and day out.
Right.
He's familiar with that. If you're talking about a contractor, he does estimating on day in and day out. This FOIA request for us is something that's totally off the table with us. I mean, it's not something that you do every day, and I do believe that we properly notified you and Channel 4 that there could be additional money with the letter, or the statement in the letter that you were just talking about, where our attorney did advise that if the amount was larger, why we would bill, and if the amount was less, we would refund. And so I think we did meet that requirement by having her advise that in that original letter.
So, I mean, I appreciate your comments. I mean, I agree to disagree. Just from, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. Never ran into a situation like this. I understand that you were saying this is not something that you guys do, but you know, that's where legal counsel, especially for us as well, and for you, like, that's where they come in to advise us. So, so this is my thoughts. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I'll answer if you have any questions.
You know, the difficulty for me, just so you know,
Yeah.
is I want to make it clear to the public, we have nothing to hide here,
Sure.
except what we're redacting is the vital security information that's related to the jail itself.
Right.
And we had to pull that out,
Sure.
just
We
for
understand that.
security and safety reasons.
Right.
So that was a huge job right there in and of itself, so. So I, you know, because a couple of people have said that to me, said, what's the authority have to hide? I said, we have to protect, not hide, but protect the security of the jail and the information that's included in some of this information. And quite frankly, we don't need the bad publicity at this point.
I understand.
I mean, our goal is, and we're really focused on it, is to get the facility open and up and running. And I think you understand that as well. And your reporter was very kind, very civil about what was going on.
Good.
What I would ask, so we don't keep going back and forth and you're running up fees and we're running up fees. That probably sounds funny coming from me, but and I don't know if the chair will agree with this or the other commissioner, Mark, will agree with this, but my preference would be that you take this back and see if you can either meet the 4456.25 plus the 1875, or if you come back with splitting the 1875. I would be willing to at least consider that, but I don't want to consider if it's considered, if it's not on the table and if you don't have the authority.
So you would want us to make a formal offer of that?
Yes.
So what's the total that we're looking at? Can somebody do the math for me?
Well,
You can go ahead and do the math, because I'm not a buyer of that product.
I know, I didn't think you,
So you're saying that if they'd be amenable to paying the $44.56 on the FOIA, that you would be willing to split the difference on the text messages? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
that's what I'd be willing to look at,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And
Now, I would like to say,
Sure.
as you said, this is a very unique situation, and I hope that you would agree that this is a unique situation for us as well, because none of us are paid. And like for Dennis and Karen sitting here, you know, they have their county job, they've got paid nothing extra for sitting in here and doing this. And that a lot of these documents are coming from two private companies that otherwise nobody would be able to do a FOIA. And so this is a very weird situation. I agree with Chairman Wick that this is not something that we do all the time. And that in the past we have been very helpful. I give you guys some free FOIA requests, minor documents, whatever, we send them over, whether it's you or other press. I mean, so we are trying to work with you, and I believe we will continue to work with you. It's just this issue, this was a very large request. It's something that we're not used to doing, and that's why we tried to meet you halfway. And I think on that issue, I think that's the best that I'm gonna be able to do on the FOIA. As far as text messages on a completely separate deal, that's something that we can maybe talk about.
Can I answer any other questions?
Commissioner Nelson, I have a couple comments
I
with
can't
you.
hear.
Can you speak up, Jody? It got really quiet for some reason.
Yeah, yep, no problem. Just a couple of things I did want everyone to keep in mind.
So the authority did make the decision to not pass along any of the legal fees in the invoice. Some of the legal fees that I charged to the authority for reviewing the FOIA request documents could have been passed along, but the authority has waived those. The other thing I wanted to remind the group is I'm looking at approximately 60 correspondence that I've had with KTIB's attorney, most emails and letters. So since the request came in September, there have been a lot of emails back and forth, letters back and forth, and that's all something that the authority has to do. We have to respond to KTIB and their attorney, but those are all legal fees that the authority has had to incur that we can't pass along. So there have been a lot of other fees that did not make it in the invoice, one, because we can't legally charge for it, or the authority already made the decision to waive it. And then as a reminder, our owner's rep didn't pass along all of the fees. There were some, I can't remember exactly, but there were, a couple of times where Shane has told us he didn't pass all of his fees along. So there have been some other concessions that were made and costs incurred by the authority related to the KTIB request. And then I would just reiterate from my perspective, the comment about our owner's rep not being a professional estimator and FOIA response time and money is a really good one, because they did their best in trying to estimate costs, but did not realize what it would take to do the redaction. From my perspective, and Shane can speak on this, it was really the redaction. And we have a jail project where the KTIB request was basically for all communications that reference Hausman or GGA or delays. And so that basically is going to encompass every single normal project document, like site observation report and change orders. And a lot of those documents where you have drawings and specifications of the jail, and all of those had to be redacted. And so it was a team of people at the owner's rep company that went through the process of reviewing and redacting all of them. And then at the end, when that was done, that's when we, fully knew the type of time it took to do that. So I do think the authority, an entity that has no employees in a very active construction project, did the best they could with giving an estimate. While the law does provide that we do bill for actual expenses, so that phrase was used in my letter. Obviously, the actual invoice was much higher, but I think I just wanted to remind this group of some other factors that went into that. And Shane, I don't know if you want to touch on that anymore.
So just as, this is Shane Albrecht, Baker Group Owners Rep. Just so everybody's clear, we were trying to get this building open, and there's been other issues, other things going on, and our goal is to get this building open. It's unfortunately, I understand the urgency of a FOIA request and its need to get done. But when we originally estimated this, the reason why Baker Group or I donated time to this project was I had to get that team on board to understand the redactions, because there was so much more documents that had drawings to them and specs and photos than anybody could have imagined when you looked at the mass amount of those that came in. I mean, there was over 4,000 emails just of mine, not let alone Todd's. So I just want everybody to know, in the original estimate that was built, it was me spending the time to do it. And because of the project and everything going on, I don't have the kind of time it would take to work on that, because we are trying to build an LEC, and I have a whole bunch of other meetings and tasks to do for that. That's neither here nor there. I understand the FOIA request part, but I want you to understand there's not people sitting around to do this. This is taking time away from the project when the FOIA request has to be processed.
Thank you. So, any other comments, thoughts?
I guess, like I said earlier, I would like to see us hold the line on meeting them halfway on the overage for the amount of $4,456.25. And if they'd like to pay that balance, you know, they could have the FOIA. If they would like to do something on the text messages, they could come back at a later date and we could discuss that as a group.
Is that a motion?
We just direct our legal counsel to send a response letter to them.
Would you rather do that than a motion? So that would be our action.
Stand, yes.
You want to make a motion to that?
I move that we direct our legal counsel, Jody McDougal, to respond to the KTIV legal counsel.
Based on what our comments have been here?
Yes.
I'll second that. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Thank you. Item number 6 on our agenda today is public concerns.
Thank you,
Please,
Mr. Chair. William Burrows, 4409 47th Street here in Sioux City. I have two concerns today. Number one is I would like to request an organizational chart that shows all the attorneys involved and who they represent. I can't keep track of them, but I think that would be a simple thing. But Shane, I don't want to pay $75 to have that drawn up. So that's the one request. The second request is I talked to a deputy sheriff yesterday. Just happened to run into him on the by and by. And I said, in your opinion, when do you foresee the jail opening? And here's what he said. I don't think it's going to be open before this summer. So I'd like to get some input from the authority as to whether they agree or disagree with that assessment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments?
We want Shane to.
Shane, do you want to respond to Mr. Burrows?
Yeah, so there's two questions Mr. Burrows asked, and as the attorneys have told us, supposed to do one question at a time. The org chart Mr. Burrows is asking for on the attorneys should be an easy thing for everybody to list all the attorneys. My question to Mr. Burrows on that, are you talking which attorneys, Mr. Burrows? Okay.
He's coming back to the table.
And maybe he means
Yep.
some of the
All of
experts.
those that are involved. For example, Shane, I read the memo from Mr. Kaczynski. I think that's his name.
Yep.
And I couldn't make
Yep.
heads or tails out of it.
Sure.
And I'm not sure, what his involvement is. And we've got an attorney for the Board of Supervisors. We've got Jody for this group, and who knows how many other ones, but, just some arrows that, like,
Sure.
you know what I'm saying, a flow chart or something.
So, Mr. Burrows, would you stay up there for? I'll do this quickly to not get into your time. So where I'm going with this, we got Jason Kaminsky, we got Jody McDougal, we got John A. Templer. Those are all people that are hired internally. But are you also asking for Stanton Beater, Rob Johnson, Jake Nelson, and all those attorneys too? Because there's attorneys on both sides of this thing. It's a fairly. I just want to understand so when we provide you information, it is what you're asking for. Okay?
Yes, all attorneys, including KTIVs.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So
All right.
Hausman, I'm sure Hausman's got it.
Correct. That was the Stanton Beater that I mentioned. Okay. All right. Thank you. Second question. Right now, Mr. Burrows, we're still evaluating that. We have a very important thing that's happening next week. Delbert Longley is the state jail inspector. He's going to walk through that site, see what he sees, and this is his final acceptance walk. Now, that doesn't mean when he gets done walking at the end of the week, the building's done. But he's going to tell you the condition of the building, things that need to be corrected. We have a few outstanding issues that we should know more about. And I think there will be a public statement made on when the completion date is. But I don't feel it's going to happen until next week when we evaluate more of these pieces and parts. And then we will have a public statement about the updated completion date, whether it's going forward, backwards, where it's going, sir. But right now, until we see the very, very important thing of Delbert Longley coming for an inspection next week, until we see how that goes, I don't want to answer that question any more than that.
And Delbert, the state inspector, there's only one for the whole state, and so let's say hypothetically it doesn't pass, it's gonna be some time, maybe weeks before he could come back in his schedule, just because he's only got for 99 counties. So obviously, big week next week, But to answer your question on some of the attorneys, you asked about Jason Kaminsky. He's with Allers and Cooney. He was the guy that helped draft the lease for the LEC Authority. So he's a finance attorney. So he helps advise based on the lease and some of our finance questions with the authority. Jody McDougall is obviously our construction attorney that's, working with the architect and the contractor on this jail. And then John Templer is the Board of Supervisors attorney, who's also a construction litigator.
Yeah.
So those are the three with us. But I see what you're saying. By the time you're open, Goldberg and Atroba and Hausman and KTF, there's a lot of attorney names floating out there. So we could put together a flow chart or something that kind of lines it all out.
That'd be very helpful.
Yep, not a problem.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you, Shane. Okay, item number 7 on the agenda is authority board members' concerns. Either of you gentlemen?
This is under the umbrella of concerns. Dennis Butler and I could not locate the original abstract of title to the property.
Okay.
My office never had it. The Des Moines lawyers that did the title opinion, the preliminary title opinion, received an electronic version of it, so we can't track it down. So what I did is, and I have a bill to submit for $400 from the abstract company for making up a new abstract. I've got the original abstract in my office. I would like to send it to the Des Moines lawyer to do a final title opinion showing that we have good title to the property, which I'm sure we do because they did a preliminary before we closed on it. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to submit the $400 bill and paid to the abstract company for the new abstract that was made up.
Do we need to take that into the record?
Yes.
We would have to.
Got moved to receive.
Second.
Thank
Would we add this on then to next Tuesday's agenda?
you. We could do that.
Yeah.
We need to get it on
Let's receive
next
that.
Tuesday's agenda to approve paying the bill.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
We're
Dennis?
gonna receive it.
Call a
Okay,
vote to receive. Whatever.
out of the
Do what?
Call a vote to receive.
Oh.
There was a motion second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
out of the
Passes 3-0.
miscellaneous,
Pardon me?
out of the miscellaneous
Yes.
budget, okay, or fund, okay,
Miscellaneous revenues, Dennis.
Yep.
yeah.
Shane, do you have anything, any updates that you would like to do on the facility?
Yes, I do. We had a very unfortunate event. Some of you may have heard about, and some of you may not have. That happened on Monday. Monday morning, Tuesday morning, at 1:40 in the morning, the sheriff called me and said deputies were out visiting the site and there was water on the floor in the loading dock area. We sent that. I forwarded the sheriff's voicemail on to Hausman to notify them of that. People got there 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. Found out that there was a water line leaking on back of the toilet on Q6. Now Q6 is a cell inside there. It's a flush valve for the toilet. That water line had been leaking. We've seen video of water dripping from about 10 o'clock at night on.
You mean from
So
like
every
security?
time that toilet would, yeah, from a security camera, Mark. So when someone went back and tried to see if they could tell when this thing started. Okay. So we had water water running throughout the building. Houseman, of course, Tuesday morning was able to get the water stopped, get the problem corrected. Thankfully, a lot of the construction in the jail is concrete walls and floors with some drains around it, so not as much damage as could have happened in somebody's house, but the damage did happen. Holes in the floor ran down into fireproofing down below. Also got a few ceiling tiles and different pieces like that need to be corrected and fixed. Currently, we have not seen any delay that's going to be added to the project because of it, but I was just sharing that information. A final list from Houseman, we were notified yesterday. What happened would be presented on Friday, and they're still exactly determining who's at fault. This is, Houseman has notified their builder's risk, so that we could check that box. Any other questions on that?
Well, you answered one of my questions, which was going to be who was liable or who was insurance, and you're saying that Houseman has called their person in that regard.
Correct.
Okay, so my second question is what broke? Was it an elbow? Was it a joint? Was it a pipe failure? Was it improper installation? Do you know any of that?
That's all speculation at this point. Right now, flush valve mark has a slip connection on it, okay? And they're saying that slip connection leaked on the flush valve. The actual cause of what caused that, whether somebody stepped on it as is being hypothetically talked about. There's also some thread sealant concerns that they didn't use the right material for thread sealant. So it's too early to pick the answer to that question definitively, okay? Still an investigation process.
I was out there this morning, and it's currently being reviewed, and they're currently working on it, and as Shane said, they hope to have an answer tomorrow.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner concerns?
Thanks for that. I mean, it's not a great update, Shane, but thank you for keeping us apprised of that. The only thing I would like to comment on is why this meeting was today and not Tuesday, because I was the one that actually got the ball rolling on that. So typically when we have a Tuesday meeting, Karen sends the agenda out Friday afternoon, midday Friday, to us commissioners and then to the public as well. Karen was off Friday, and I never got an email, which I thought, okay, well, the agenda is going to come out Monday morning, still in time for the 24-hour notice. Mid-Monday morning, I think it was about 10:30, I still hadn't gotten anything, and I called Shane, and I said, hey, what's the deal on the agenda? And he said, well, it was sent out Friday, I don't know what you're talking about. And so I looked, and somehow I was left off of that list for Friday. So I got the agenda sent to me, I thought everything was well, until about mid-morning, Tuesday morning, I got a call from a reporter here in town that had a question that I answered, and I said, will you be at the meeting this afternoon? And they replied with, what meeting? We're not aware of any meetings. I called Karen. She was obviously not here Friday, so she had to do some digging to see what was emailed out Friday. She called me back sometime later to say that the public or the media had been notified, as we typically do. So then I had the question of, do we have a proper notice? I then contacted Assistant County Attorney Joshua Whitman. Him and I talked about it, and he said, well, I gotta look at the code and kind of, because we're a little bit different than the county. So Joshua looked through that. We then talked later, and he said, I think it's kind of gray here. I would recommend postponing. I always want to err on the side of caution as well. So then I was trying to get a hold of Jody, because I cannot talk to Ron or Dan on matters like this. Jody was not accessible right away. She has lots of things going on, but when we did finally connect, I told her the problem. And then she had to contact Ron, who I believe was out at the LEC, and then he was hard to get a hold of. So I just want people to understand that when we can't communicate some of these things, it takes a while to work through all this. And so I believe Ron, at some point around 1 o'clock, you said, yeah, it's enough gray area here. You responded to Jody and said, yeah, we need to postpone. And so, while we do apologize to anybody that it maybe messed them up Tuesday afternoon, there was no malice or anything in that regard. It was the fact that we did not think we had everything done to constitute a legal meeting. And I was busy to where I didn't even see that the meeting, I knew that it was, I at one point told Jody, I said, well, regardless of whether the meeting's postponed or not, I'm not coming because I don't feel like it's legal. And then I was tied up for quite some time until well after 2 o'clock when it was brought to my attention that nobody was let up. So we apologize to those people, but that's what happened. We gotta make sure that we're doing this by the book. And that's why we're here today. It would've been way better for me to have been here Tuesday, but it didn't happen. And again, it's not anybody, I don't blame Heather, she's filling in, Karen's filling in, none of these guys are getting anything extra for doing this. So we'll just try to be patient with us and we'll get it right. So that's all I have.
Any other concerns? Okay, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.